The Middle East is rich in oil reserves, providing a huge amount of the world's energy. But what it has in abundance in hydrocarbons, it lacks in a critical resource that is growing scarcer by the year: water.
Rumors emerging from the harsh Arabian desert point to an absolutely astonishing secret. A country battling constant water scarcity was, according to reports, taking millions of gallons of salt water and pumping it far beneath the ground. It seems completely illogical. Why would a nation dealing with such a severe water crisis intentionally bury one of its most valuable resources under endless stretches of unforgiving sand? Was it a reckless act born from desperation or an incredibly bold and visionary solution? The shocking truth is an extraordinary achievement of human engineering that has permanently reshaped the region. Before we uncover the incredible outcome that almost seems impossible to believe, take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories. Now let's reveal the mystery hidden beneath the desert sands. The scale of Saudi Arabia's challenge is almost impossible to imagine. The kingdom lies deep within the hyper-arid Arabian desert, making it one of the driest places on the planet. It has no permanent natural rivers, no major freshwater lakes, and receives only very limited rainfall. But one question still remains. If water was being buried underground, where did this valuable resource come from in the first place? The answer lies in a carefully planned strategy built around two remarkable engineering achievements. The first focuses on capturing every possible drop of rain, while the second depends on an unmatched use of the surrounding sea. Despite the scorching climate, Saudi Arabia has achieved what once seemed impossible by developing an advanced system to manage water where nature provides almost none. Surprisingly, the country has built an incredible 522 dams since the early 2000s. 522 dams in the middle of a desert. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? These dams were never meant to control year-round rivers. Instead, they perform a vital, life-saving role by collecting rainwater and sudden flash floods, which usually race through wadis, dry riverbeds that briefly fill after rare storms. The temperatures are so extreme that if this precious water were allowed to flow away naturally, a large portion would evaporate almost instantly under the intense heat. By constructing these dams, Saudi Arabia captures and preserves this short-lived resource. Together, these structures can store an enormous 650 billion gallons of water. But can just a few inches of rainfall really help an entire country? Surprisingly, yes, when every drop is collected effectively. During periods of concentrated seasonal rain and occasional flooding, enough water can be gathered to temporarily support whole cities. These dams serve as essential storage facilities while also reducing the risk of dangerous floods. Take the Hali Dam in Mecca province as an example. Built between 2003 and 2009, it is a massive structure and ranks as the second largest dam in the nation, with an estimated reservoir capacity of 249.86 million cubic meters, or more than 66 billion gallons. Its importance cannot be overstated. It controls flooding, provides local water supplies, and, most importantly, helps recharge underground aquifers by directing water back into the earth. In the Mecca region alone, Saudi Arabia operates an impressive 60 dams with a combined storage capacity of 232 billion gallons. So although the country is famous for its dry climate, it is not completely without water. Even so, the amount collected by these dams supplies only a small portion of what the nation actually needs. And this is where the strategy of pumping salt water underground becomes especially significant. If rainwater was already being captured through dams, why would the country choose to inject even more water, particularly desalinated water, beneath the surface instead of delivering it directly to its people? This brings us to the next and far more daring part of Saudi Arabia's survival strategy. As impressive as these dams are, they remain only a secondary solution. The country's real and long-term water lifeline does not come from reservoirs on the surface, but from what can only be described as hidden underground giants, enormous groundwater reserves. This is where the figures tell a story that is both fascinating and alarming. Geological studies estimate that nearly 26 trillion gallons of water lie beneath Saudi Arabia's soil. At first glance, that staggering amount sounds like an incredible gift from nature. Surely that's enough to last for hundreds of years, right? But the real story lies in the details. Those 26 trillion gallons make up a limited reserve, and only a very small portion can truly be counted on. Most of this supply is what scientists refer to as fossil water. It is ancient water that has remained trapped underground for thousands, and in some cases millions of years, dating back to a time when the Arabian Peninsula was green, fertile, and crossed by flowing rivers. During that distant era, regular rainfall soaked deep into the earth and gradually filled vast natural aquifers. Once this fossil water is pumped to the surface, it is gone forever. It cannot be replaced because the region's modern rainfall is far too limited to refill these enormous underground reservoirs. Using it is much like spending the original amount of an inheritance. Once the money is gone, it can never be recovered. By comparison, only a small share of the total supply, estimated at roughly 739 billion gallons every year, qualifies as renewable groundwater. This is the only portion that can be used safely over time because today's rainfall naturally restores it. Right now, fossil water is being pulled from the ground by powerful pumping systems and delivered to expanding cities, vast agricultural lands, and millions of households. Although these underground reserves have been an incredible blessing, they also represent an extremely delicate lifeline. The challenge itself is simple but deeply concerning. Saudi Arabia uses far more water than nature can replace. Demand is enormous, fueled not only by drinking and household needs, but also by large-scale farming projects, industrial operations, and even everyday conveniences like maintaining lush green parks in the desert or washing vehicles. But with reserves this huge, is the situation really so serious? The answer is yes. Depending on a non-renewable resource is an enormous risk. Rainfall across Saudi Arabia is famously rare and highly unpredictable. One year may bring slightly better conditions, while another may see almost no rain at all. There is absolutely no certainty about when the next meaningful recharge will happen or whether it will happen at all. If extraction continues at an unsustainable pace, those valuable underground reserves will eventually disappear, much like an overdrawn bank account with no reliable source of income. With the population continuing to grow and water demand rising every year, an unavoidable question emerges. What happens when those supplies finally run dry? To reduce the threat of that future crisis, Saudi Arabia has also made major investments in wastewater recycling. Today, the country operates 99 specialized treatment plants dedicated to cleaning and reusing water. In 2019 alone, they processed an impressive 1.3 billion gallons every single day. Although experts expect that number to increase by roughly 4% each year through 2050, it still will not be enough to satisfy the nation's rapidly growing demand. And that brings us back to the original mystery. If groundwater reserves are slowly being depleted, why would Saudi Arabia pump millions of gallons of salt water underground instead of using it immediately? The answer to that question may represent one of the most remarkable engineering achievements of the modern era. With groundwater reserves shrinking fast, rainfall remaining scarce, and water demand increasing every year, Saudi engineers and planners had no choice but to think beyond conventional solutions, or rather, far beneath the desert itself. Since nature never provided them with rivers, they set out to accomplish something extraordinary and create their own. After all, with the vast Red Sea and the Persian Gulf surrounding the kingdom, why not simply transport water directly from those sources? That realization sparked one of the boldest engineering projects of the modern age. Officials in Riyadh launched the construction of an enormous man-made pipeline network, an almost unbelievable underground water highway designed to carry water from the coast deep into the heart of the country. As you already know, rainfall across Saudi Arabia is highly unpredictable, averaging only around 100 millimeters, or 4 inches annually in many areas. Because of this harsh reality, the Saudi Water Authority, the agency responsible for protecting the nation's most essential resource, moved forward with building what many now describe as an artificial underground river. This enormous network of advanced pipelines stretches for nearly 8,700 miles from end to end. Just pause and think about that distance. 8,700 miles. To put it into perspective, this engineered water system is more than twice as long as the legendary Nile River, the longest natural river on Earth, which measures roughly 4,135 miles. It stands among the largest man-made water transportation networks ever built. But these are far from ordinary pipes buried just below the surface. Such an approach would have been impossible under desert conditions. Unlike older water systems that often ran above ground or only slightly underground, leaving them dangerously exposed to the environment, the majority of these pipelines were installed deep beneath the earth. That design choice is absolutely essential. In a region where summer temperatures frequently climb above 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius, transporting water across the surface would result in enormous losses through evaporation while also increasing the risk of contamination. By placing this hidden river deep underground, Saudi Arabia gains several major advantages. Evaporation is reduced to almost nothing. The desalinated water stays protected from intense heat and outside pollutants, preserving its quality. Most importantly, the underground layout helps maintain steady pressure and efficient flow across incredibly long distances. This gigantic system was never built for prestige. It was created out of necessity. With very few natural water sources and rapidly expanding cities, such as Riyadh, Jeddah, and Mecca, the kingdom finally secured a dependable way to collect seawater and transport the fresh water produced by desalination plants throughout the country. Yet the most astonishing part of this story is still to come. The pipelines were designed to carry desalinated water, but that water is not always sent directly into homes and businesses. So why invest billions in producing clean water only to pump millions of gallons beneath the sand, where it might seem lost forever? The answer reveals a strategy far more sophisticated than simple transportation. Before uncovering that final secret, however, it's important to understand the incredible human effort and technical expertise required to make this system a reality. Without question, building Saudi Arabia's underground river ranks among the greatest engineering accomplishments ever attempted. To transport water from the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf to inland cities like Riyadh, engineers had to carve directly through the unforgiving Hejaz Mountains, drilling through thick layers of granite and limestone that presented enormous obstacles to excavation. They depended on advanced tunnel boring machines and carefully controlled blasting operations. Some of the pipelines, measuring more than 2 meters in diameter, had to be installed with exceptional precision to maintain stable pressure while preventing leaks or structural failures deep below the surface. Once the mountains had been conquered, construction crews entered the brutal Arabian desert. In central regions, temperatures during summer regularly rise above 50 degrees Celsius or 122 degrees Fahrenheit, making daytime work extremely hazardous. To cope with these conditions, crews often carried out construction during the coolest hours of early morning or throughout the night. Extreme heat, however, was only one challenge. Constantly shifting sand dunes, powerful dust storms, and sudden flash floods added even more complications. Although burying the pipelines deep underground dramatically reduces evaporation and shields them from weather-related damage, it also demands extensive trenching and continuous soil stabilization across thousands of miles of unstable desert terrain. Of course, every bit of this effort exists for one purpose: transporting desalinated water. But that raises another obvious question. How can seawater taken from the Red Sea or the Gulf ever become suitable for millions of people to use? The answer lies in desalination, the process of removing salt and other impurities from seawater so it becomes safe for drinking and daily use. For nations surrounded by salt water, especially Saudi Arabia, it has become an extraordinary technological solution. These facilities literally transform seawater into clean freshwater, ready for homes, businesses, and industries. Still, desalination is far from a perfect miracle. It comes with significant trade-offs. Producing fresh water this way requires enormous amounts of energy, consuming vast quantities of electricity that are often generated from fossil fuels. As a result, desalination costs considerably more than relying on conventional freshwater sources, in many cases anywhere from 3 to 10 times as much. Quite surprising, isn't it? Environmental concerns also remain substantial, particularly because of brine, the extremely salty byproduct left behind after desalination. If this concentrated waste is discharged back into the ocean without proper management, it can seriously damage nearby marine ecosystems and threaten local sea life. Even with these challenges, Saudi Arabia has fully committed itself to desalination, becoming the world's largest producer of desalinated water. Its infrastructure has expanded at an astonishing pace. From having very limited capacity in the 1980s, the kingdom increased its number of desalination facilities to 33 by 2023 and further expanded that total to 43 in 2024. One remarkable example is the Ras Al Khair plant located on the country's eastern coast. Built at an enormous cost of $7.2 billion, this giant facility holds the Guinness World Record as the largest hybrid thermal and membrane desalination plant on Earth. Every single day, it produces an extraordinary 792 million gallons of fresh water, enough to serve millions of residents while supporting major industrial developments. Saudi Arabia continues to lead the world in desalination technology. Yet even after spending billions to create this priceless supply of clean water, we return to the same puzzling question. Why would a nation invest so heavily in moving seawater across mountains and transforming it into fresh water only to pump millions of gallons back underground? The answer goes far beyond simply transporting water. It's about preserving it for generations to come. Saudi Arabia continues to lead the world in desalination, yet despite producing enormous amounts of clean and valuable fresh water, one question still remains. Why would a country spend billions to cross mountains and transform seawater into a priceless resource only to pump millions of gallons of it back beneath the ground? The truth is that this strategy isn't just about moving water, it's about creating a permanent reserve that can support the nation far into the future. And the need for that reserve is tied directly to one of the most ambitious environmental projects ever launched, the Saudi Green Initiative. Can you guess what this initiative is really about? It goes far beyond planting trees. It is a massive environmental restoration program designed to reshape Saudi Arabia's landscape and redefine its future. The kingdom has committed to protecting 30% of its land from the relentless spread of desertification. At the center of this vision is the extraordinary goal of planting 10 billion trees over the coming years. This enormous undertaking aims to reclaim land from the desert itself by transforming nearly 184 million acres into fertile, life-supporting terrain. The objective is straightforward but incredibly important: to fight the advancing desert while protecting ecosystems, strengthening agriculture, and supporting communities across the country. Expanding green spaces on such a massive scale creates a natural defense against desert expansion while also improving long-term food security. The benefits don't stop there. Cities also stand to gain tremendously. More trees and larger green areas improve air quality in urban environments where heat becomes trapped by concrete and asphalt. Research suggests that widespread tree planting could significantly reduce harmful airborne pollutants like PM 2.5 and PM 10, potentially lowering PM 2.5 concentrations by as much as 20%. That reduction could help decrease respiratory illnesses and many other health risks. Perhaps the most immediate benefit is temperature reduction. Experts estimate that widespread vegetation could lower average temperatures by at least 3.96 degrees Fahrenheit. At first glance, that may not sound dramatic, but in Saudi Arabia, where streets regularly reach 122 degrees Fahrenheit, even a small decrease can make a life-saving difference for millions of people. Alongside the nationwide program, regional developments in next-generation cities such as Riyadh and Neom are rapidly integrating green infrastructure into their planning. Hundreds of millions of trees have already been planted, showing measurable progress toward the ambitious target of 10 billion. The Saudi Green Initiative is therefore much more than an environmental campaign. It represents a fundamental commitment to long-term sustainability and national transformation. But here lies the biggest challenge of all. How do you maintain a forest containing 10 billion trees in one of the driest regions on Earth? Depending on unreliable rainfall or steadily shrinking fossil groundwater simply isn't an option. The success of this multi-billion-dollar vision depends entirely on having a dependable, secure, and enormous supply of water. That is the real reason Saudi Arabia is burying water underground. Instead of wasting desalinated water, the country pumps it into managed aquifer recharge systems, commonly known as MAR, effectively creating a vast artificial aquifer beneath the desert. The water isn't being discarded at all. In reality, Saudi Arabia is using the cool and stable geological formations beneath the sand as one enormous natural vault. By storing water underground, it avoids the devastating evaporation losses that would affect any surface reservoir in such extreme temperatures, losses that can exceed 20% every year. This hidden reserve guarantees a dependable supply for future population growth, industrial expansion, and perhaps most importantly, the success of the 10 billion tree initiative. The seemingly unbelievable act of bearing millions of gallons of water is actually what makes a greener and more sustainable future possible. What we've uncovered today is about far more than engineering. It is an inspiring example of resilience, long-term thinking, and bold vision. Saudi Arabia faced a crisis that threatened its very future. Rather than surrendering to its limitations, it chose innovation. By constructing an invisible river that stretches farther than the Nile and building the world's largest desalination network, the kingdom found a way to transform seawater into the foundation of life. Its boldest decision, pumping incredibly valuable freshwater deep beneath the desert, turns out to be its smartest one. Underground storage prevents evaporation, secures water for expanding cities, and provides the foundation needed to sustain the enormous 10 billion tree project. In essence, the country is storing water not only for today or tomorrow, but for generations still to come. This remarkable story reminds us that genuine innovation often means investing in ideas that seem unbelievable at first, but ultimately provide solutions to challenges that once appeared impossible. Saudi Arabia's hidden underground system stands as proof of what humanity can accomplish when determination, technology, and long-term vision come together in pursuit of a common goal. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Secret Narrative to unravel mysteries, learn untold tales of history, and stay in the exciting world of new discoveries.